Hello and welcome to today's episode of Light Lunch, where we're joined by two designers from design group Stapleton Elliott, who are going to introduce themselves now.
Awesome, thank you. So, hello, Lily. My name is Matamoana, Nuku. I am from the friendly islands of Tonga, Aotu and Nuku. Shout out to my villages. And I also go by my wrestling name as Aki Kid. So very nice to meet you.
Kia ora koutou, ko Nathan Kim taku ingoa. 안녕하세요, 제 이름 김양호입니다. Hi guys, I'm Nathan Kim. I'm a architect and senior associate at Stapleton Elliott with my good friend here, Moana. Really excited to be here and keen to answer some questions.
Awesome. So we are going to hear from these two on things that have been keeping them awake at night. Who is going to kick us off?
I can
Yeah,
start.
cool.
That's all good. So I guess my first point is, I would say, the built environment and how it reflects its people in place. I think is probably one of the big key things for myself. And I think a lot of people are also sort of going through this change within their own practices as well. I think it's important that our buildings, our spaces should tell the story of its people and of its place. And I think one of the key things in order to do that is understanding that Aotearoa is a Pacific nation. So we've got to contextualize ourselves within the region, hone it into, I guess, the rohe, but also, you know, when you are looking at specific sites that some of the design narrative is, or the design narrative is taken specific on people in place. The second part is obviously acknowledging the status of Māori as tangata whenua, and we as sort of guests in this land, and the way that specifically for me, what does it mean for me being a Pacific living in Aotearoa and the interface. And so I guess at DGSE we've got our IDR, which is our Indigenous Designer Rofu, and so we sort of operate both internally and sort of raising the cultural capacity within the company, but also help our clients and stakeholders through that process.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, no, it's a really interesting space to watch that IDR develop in Africa. I think, yeah, watch the space get bigger and bigger, right? Yeah, what keeps me up at night? One of the things is social housing. So we do a lot of this work. We do a lot of work in the space at Design Group Stapleton Elliott. And it's one thing in particular that kind of gets to me and keeps me up at night, which is the question that gets asked a lot. And it's asked a lot in kind of staff articles, even my friends would ask, family members, you know, all that kind of stuff. And it's something along the lines of, you know, why do we put so much money and why do we put so much architecture and make these buildings lavish for social housing, which is taxpayer money? And so there's a bit of misconception around that, and I could talk about it for hours in terms of the reasons why, but I won't. Yeah, so I'll just kind of sum it up in a condensed way, which is, you know, the more the space is going to be lived in, the more livable we need to design it to be. So the demographic that goes to social housing, they don't have the privilege to typically go to a 9-to-5 job like us. They don't have the privilege to go out and have dinner with their friends, go on holiday. They are in their homes for most of their life. And so, of course, they need to be bigger, warmer, better designed. So, yeah, I think that's just a really important thing. And it's
very interesting, yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully some staff article disgruntled citizens are listening. And but yeah, that's my first thing.
Yeah, and I think that probably a good segue for my second point, Nathan, is really the access to quality housing. I myself grew up in social housing, you know, which is a very common narrative and story for a lot of Pacific and Māori, you know, a little 3-bedroom home that houses 12 people. So, I mean, it's an ongoing struggle, and I think particularly now with that sort of price demand of everything going up, and sort of housing affordability. So I'd also like to add that I also am fortunate to sit on the Pacific Housing Trust, and so they are on a mission to deliver 300 affordable homes for Pacifica families in Poriroa. And so they are working with partnership with Ngāti Toa, or the mana whenua of the area, to deliver this project in the shared equity model. So a lot of people, definitely social housing is one of the solutions, but eventually moving into home ownership, I think is probably one of the key things that unlocks sort of, a plethora of benefits such as well-being, sort of access to, wealth generation wealth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah. Next on the list, what else is kicking up tonight? Who's designing our homes? So I was at this, designers, which we have the responsibility for, but little story for you. I was at this conference or this event last week in Auckland where Guy Marriage was actually presenting. We've presented on this before. And he asked the audience a question. He asked, who here lives in a form of medium density housing? So that could be an apartment unit, a terrace townhouse, or a townhouse of some sort. And of an audience full of architects, designers, developers, the people who create the housing stock, I think it was about 3 or 4 of us who put our hands up. And that's been something that's been on my mind, since before that question was asked. And it just goes to show, there is a bit of detachment sometimes between the people who are designing the spaces, for those who are different to them. So, it's beautiful to see that Moana grew up in social housing and has come full circle. And he's part of the change, the impacts on the future of social housing and housing in general. And so I think that really highlights to me that diversity is key. We go into these meetings with all these designers and no one's actually lived in an apartment building before. And so, we need to be more attached, and diversity is how we achieve that. Young people, different backgrounds, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think real lived experiences.
100%. Yeah.
Sort of help with that, and I think that's definitely what people of diverse backgrounds will bring to a project like that.
Yeah. Definitely.
I think also to add to that is particularly with this our Whare project, which is the one that the Pacific Housing Trust is looking to deliver. They are looking to deliver it by Pacific for Pacific.
oh, cool.
So whether it's through consultants, architects, engineers, they are looking for Pacific people.
Yeah, wow.
But also in I guess procurement for contractors. Looking specifically for the capability within the community to be able to deliver a project.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. Right.
Third.
Yeah, go on.
The third one's a little bit lighter, and I'm no expert in this field, but it is something that sort of piques my interest, and that is AI technology. And I think it's quite evident sort of now that it's very much part of our industry, and it's not how will it, but the question is how is it influencing the way that we work, the way that we design, and I think that there's huge potential for it to do well, but also at the same time not do well.
Yes.
And so I guess as part of our role and responsibility is how do we harness the tool. And along those lines, it gets me also thinking about, what might our spaces, all our buildings, how would they have looked if our ancestors had access to tools such as AI technology? These were people that were very much sort of in sync with the natural environment. And so just that question alone.
That might keep me up tonight.
Yeah, imagine that.
Yeah, wow.
The diversity of building typologies and just program and all that kind of stuff would be just out of this world.
Yeah,
it's like it reminds me of a movie or something.
Yeah.
I kind of try to visualize it. Yeah.
Wow. All right. And third point.
Third point for me. So you're trying to end it on a light note. Unfortunately, I'm going to end it on a bit of a heavier, more controversial note. And I'll speak on the sensitivity, but it's the role of men in gender inequality in our industry. So I think, a lack of women leaders and really evident pay disparity makes the issue quite real. And I think as a male, we do have a responsibility. We are the ones with the privilege, so we've got to check that privilege and contribute more into that space, obviously, without taking the spotlight, without taking up too much room there. But to keep the conversation going, I think more males need to interrogate that and
Absolutely.
just acknowledge it for sure. Yeah. But yeah, sorry to end it on such a
No, it's
heavy
good.
note.
It's good that we've got people like you out there.
Yeah, and I guess that kind of translates across most, whether it be in minorities.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
If you are a person in privilege, I think it's important to be an enabler, to empower people to take up that space.
Yeah, because I feel like privilege is privilege, whereas the people who are oppressed, they're not as heard often by the privilege. So yeah, we won't get too deep into that. But,
All right, should we go a little lighter then?
Yeah.
Right, some quick fire questions for you both. What are you reading, listening, or currently watching?
I have just watched a movie actually, and I'm going to plug it. Here is Red, White, and Brass. So I'm not sure if
White and Brass.
thoroughly recommend it. My cousin was the Halai for North Female, was the co-writer, co-producer. And it's, I think, as of last week, is in the top 25 greatest movies of all time in Aotearoa.
Wow.
It's a story about a Tongan community here in Wellington. They're on a mission to get to
Very
the Rugby World
cool.
Cup. So.
Nice.
Right, we might need to get some more details on that for the follow-up, actually. And what about you?
I've been reading The Alchemist, which is I'm about 20 years late to the trend on that. But, yeah, it's a really interesting book. I haven't finished it yet. It's been taking me a while, admittedly, but yeah, all about writing your destiny.
Yeah,
So big fan of that.
interesting. All right, what is something that you do for yourself for your well-being?
Well-being. I am a new father, so I think at the moment, that's probably my biggest role and achievement today.
The baby's well-being, we're
Yeah.
looking after it.
It is mums.
Yes,
So I
I'm
guess
glad you said that.
I'm with family with Bub. So that is what I do for well-being.
How's that all gone?
Yeah,
Keeping
good.
us sleep?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But family is key, and we've got a good support system. That's both
Really.
family, friends, colleagues.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I really like this question because I'm a huge fan of, mental health awareness and well-being. And I'm quite a stressy person. I feel like I let stress get to me and it kind of just eats away inside. So yeah, so what I'm trying to do these days is really practice mindfulness and meditation. Just really trying to let it go and let it be.
Yeah,
That's what I'm trying to do these days.
well, stressing about it, you're not actually doing anything.
Exactly,
About
yeah.
the situation, are you? So,
It goes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right, and what is your motto? What do you live by?
Yeah, my motto is Aukiwa, which is a Tongan concept of nurturing sort of relationships or spatial relationships, and that's, I guess, common across most Pacific people. But my grandfather once said that Tonga is not rich in natural resources, but what we do, what we value as wealth is our relationships with people, and those are the things that are most important. Most important to life. So.
Lovely, that's really nice.
Yeah, my one's more of a quote. So a quote from a famous philosopher, and it goes something like, if you can choose between being right and being kind, always choose kind. Yeah, bit cheesy, but I really, really like that. And that's what I live by.
Yeah, well done. Awesome. Just a quick note that our awards entries closing date has been extended until the 22nd of May. So please get your entries in for that. And we will see you next in a couple of weeks.